What if the very medical tests you trust to keep you safe are actually putting you in danger? Picture this. Margaret sits in her doctor's office, nodding as her physician recommends a full-body scan, a colonoscopy, and a heart stress test. At 74, she feels fine, but she's been told these routine checkups are essential for staying healthy. 3 months later, Margaret finds herself recovering from an unnecessary heart procedure that left her weaker than before, all because of a false alarm that should never have happened. She's not alone. Millions of seniors, just like you, are unknowingly walking into medical traps disguised as preventive care. Here's the uncomfortable truth that most doctors won't tell you. After age 70, 5 of the most commonly recommended health screenings can cause more harm than they prevent. In the next few minutes, I'm going to share the real stories of people who trusted the system and paid the price. And more importantly, I'll reveal exactly which tests you should question and what you should do instead. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you can do for your health is to say no. Harold sat in the waiting room, clutching a list of 8 different tests his doctor had ordered for his annual checkup. At 72, he felt strong and healthy, walked 3 miles every morning, and still tended his garden with the same passion he'd had for decades. But the message from his doctor was clear. At his age, he needed to be vigilant. What Harold didn't know was that he was about to enter a medical maze that would consume the next 6 months of his life and leave him questioning every sensation in his body. Here's what no one tells you about turning 70. The moment you cross that threshold, the medical world sees you differently. Suddenly, you're not just a person seeking care. You're a collection of potential problems that need constant monitoring. Every ache becomes suspicious. Every normal sign of aging transforms into a reason for another test. Your doctor's office becomes a second home, and medical appointments start dominating your calendar. Before you know it, you're trapped in a cycle that was supposed to protect you but ends up consuming your peace of mind and stealing the very vitality it promised to preserve. The shocking truth is that 37% of medical tests ordered for people over 70 lead to unnecessary treatments or lifelong complications. Think about that for a moment. More than 1 in 3 tests creates problems that weren't there before. Yet 99% of seniors have no idea they're being over-tested. They trust their doctors completely, believing that more tests equal better care. But sometimes the opposite is true. Harold's story unfolded exactly like this. His 8 tests led to 3 abnormal results. Those results triggered more tests. The more tests revealed findings that required specialists. The specialists ordered procedures. By the end, Harold had undergone 2 minor surgeries for conditions that might never have affected his quality of life. He spent 12 out of pocket and 6 months worrying about problems he never felt. The turning point comes when you understand this simple truth. Your body at 70 is not broken, it's experienced. Some changes are normal. Some findings are just part of aging gracefully. The key is learning which tests truly protect you and which ones open doors you might prefer to keep closed. Before you agree to any test, ask one powerful question. What happens next if this test finds something? If the answer leads to more tests, procedures, or treatments that won't improve how you feel or how long you live, then maybe that test isn't for you. Your peace of mind has value too. Remember, the goal isn't to avoid all medical care. It's to be smart about which care serves your life and which care serves the system. And sometimes, saying no to a test is the healthiest choice you can make. Number 1. Bone density scan. Rose had never broken a bone in her 76 years of life. She hiked, she gardened, she chased her grandchildren around the playground. But when her doctor recommended a bone density scan as part of her routine care, she didn't hesitate. After all, preventing fractures seemed like common sense. What followed would teach her that sometimes common sense and good medicine don't always align. The DEXA scan results came back, showing bone loss. And suddenly, Rose had a new identity: osteopenia patient. Within days, she was prescribed bisphosphonates, powerful drugs designed to strengthen her bones. Her doctor painted a frightening picture of potential fractures and disability if she didn't start treatment immediately. Rose, like millions of women her age, trusted the system and began taking the medication that promised to protect her future. But here's what Rose wasn't told. After age 70, some bone density loss is completely normal. Your bones, like every part of your body, change with time. The DEXA scan doesn't account for your individual risk factors, your activity level, or whether you've ever actually broken anything. It simply compares your bones to those of a healthy 30-year-old and declares anything less than perfect as disease. For many seniors, this leads to a diagnosis that creates more problems than it solves. Within 6 months, Rose began experiencing the side effects no one had warned her about. Severe heartburn that kept her awake at night, difficulty swallowing that made her fear every meal. When she researched her medication, she discovered the terrifying risk of jaw necrosis, a condition where pieces of jawbone actually die and break away. The very medication meant to strengthen her bones was threatening to destroy them in the most devastating way possible. The numbers tell the real story. A major study following thousands of patients for 5 years found that bisphosphonate treatment reduced fracture risk by only 0.3%. That means out of 0 people taking these drugs, only 3 would avoid a fracture they otherwise would have had. Meanwhile, the side effects affected far more people than the medication actually helped. Rose made the brave decision to stop her medication and focus on what actually works. She increased her vitamin D intake, added resistance training to her routine, and made sure she got enough calcium from real food, not pills. She learned that building strength through movement and proper nutrition was not only safer but more effective than relying on drugs with scary side effects. Today, Rose is stronger than ever, and more importantly, she's not afraid of her own body. She learned that the best protection against fractures isn't found in a pill bottle. It's found in staying active, eating well, and trusting that a body that has served you well for 7 decades deserves better than being labeled as broken when it's simply being human. Number 2. Brain for mild memory loss. George walked into his doctor's office concerned about forgetting where he put his keys and occasionally losing track of names at social gatherings. At 74, these small memory lapses worried him, so he decided to address them during his regular checkup. His doctor immediately suggested a brain MRI to rule out serious conditions. George agreed, thinking it was better to be safe than sorry. He had no idea that this simple scan would transform his peaceful retirement into months of anxiety and fear. The MRI results came back showing small white spots on George's brain. Suddenly, words like white matter disease and possible early dementia filled his medical records. His doctor ordered more tests, consultations with specialists, and follow-up scans. George, who had walked into the office as a man with normal age-related forgetfulness, walked out feeling like his mind was failing him. The very scan meant to provide peace of mind had stolen it instead. What George discovered too late is that brain changes are a normal part of aging. Those white spots his MRI revealed, they appear in up to 95% of people over 70. Your brain, like your skin and your joints, shows signs of the years it has served you. These changes rarely mean disease, and they certainly don't predict your future mental abilities. But once they're captured on film, they become a source of worry that can actually affect your cognitive health more than the spots themselves ever would. The numbers are staggering. A comprehensive study of 3 zero-brain MRIs found that only 3% of the abnormalities discovered were actually linked to treatable conditions. That means 97% of the time, these scans reveal findings that worry patients and doctors but don't lead to any meaningful treatment. Yet the psychological impact is devastating. People like George begin questioning every forgotten word, every misplaced item, every moment of confusion. George spent 6 months in a state of constant worry. He withdrew from social activities, afraid that others would notice his supposed decline. He stopped reading, convinced that his comprehension was failing. He even avoided challenging activities, believing that his brain could no longer handle complexity. The irony is heartbreaking. The test meant to preserve his cognitive health was actually damaging it through fear and avoidance. The turning point came when George sought a second opinion from a geriatrician who specialized in normal aging. This doctor explained that George's memory complaints were entirely normal for his age and that his MRI findings were just as common. More importantly, she introduced him to simple cognitive screening tests that could actually assess his mental function without the drama and expense of brain imaging. Today, George has returned to his active lifestyle. He plays bridge twice a week, reads voraciously, and has even started learning Spanish. He learned that the best way to protect his mind isn't through scanning it for problems, but through challenging it with new experiences and trusting that a lifetime of accumulated wisdom is worth more than any picture of his brain could ever reveal. Number 3. Cardiac stress test. Raymond mentioned to his doctor that he'd been feeling a little more tired than usual after his morning walks. At 75, he figured it was normal, but his doctor's expression grew serious. Within minutes, Raymond found himself scheduled for a cardiac stress test, just to be safe. He had no chest pain, no shortness of breath, no family history of heart disease. But the word tired had triggered a medical response that would soon turn his healthy life upside down. The stress test results showed some irregular patterns. Raymond's doctor called them concerning and immediately referred him to a cardiologist. The cardiologist recommended an angiogram to get a better look at his heart arteries. Raymond, trusting the experts and terrified by the growing seriousness of his situation, agreed to the procedure. He went from a man with mild fatigue to a cardiac patient in the span of 2 weeks, and the transformation felt surreal. What Raymond didn't know is that cardiac stress tests have a notorious reputation for crying wolf. In people over 70 without symptoms, these tests produce false positive results up to 40% of the time. That means 4 out of 10 healthy seniors who take this test will be told they have heart problems that don't actually exist. The test was designed for people with chest pain and clear symptoms, not for tired seniors looking for reassurance. The angiogram revealed some mild narrowing in one of Raymond's arteries. Nothing immediately life-threatening, but enough for the cardiologist to recommend a stent. The procedure seemed routine until Raymond had a severe reaction to the contrast dye used during the operation. His kidneys began to fail, and what should have been a same-day procedure turned into a week-long hospital stay filled with complications and fear. A 2017 study in JAMA revealed the devastating truth. Over half of all stents placed in patients like Raymond were completely unnecessary. These procedures, with their risks of bleeding, kidney injury, and infection, were being performed on people whose hearts were functioning perfectly well for their age and activity level. The cure had become worse than the disease that was never really there. Raymond's recovery took months. The kidney damage from the contrast dye left him with permanent limitations and a daily medication regimen he'd never needed before. His energy levels, ironically, became worse than they'd been when he first complained of fatigue. The very procedure meant to improve his heart health had stolen his overall wellness and left him feeling older and more fragile than his 75 years warranted. The lesson Raymond learned the hard way is that there are safer alternatives for evaluating heart health in seniors. A simple resting EKG can provide valuable information without the drama of a stress test. A coronary calcium scan can assess actual risk without the false alarms. Most importantly, listening to your body and understanding that some slowing down is normal can prevent you from chasing problems that don't exist. Raymond now advocates for the power of saying, "What happens next?" before agreeing to any test, because sometimes the safest path forward is the one that doesn't involve testing at all. Number 4. Routine colonoscopy. After 70. Dana had never experienced any digestive problems in her 73 years. No pain, no bleeding, no family history of colon cancer. But when her doctor mentioned that it had been 10 years since her last colonoscopy, the recommendation was clear: time for another screening. Dana, like many responsible seniors, believed that staying current with these procedures was essential for catching problems early. She scheduled the appointment without question, trusting that this routine test would give her peace of mind for another decade. The preparation was brutal. 2 days of clear liquids, powerful laxatives that left her feeling weak and dehydrated. Dana had forgotten how miserable the prep could be, but she reminded herself it was worth it for the reassurance. What she didn't anticipate was waking up in the recovery room to news that would change everything. During the procedure, her colon had been accidentally perforated. What should have been a simple outpatient screening had become a medical emergency requiring immediate surgery. Here's the reality that doctors rarely discuss openly. After age 75, colonoscopies carry significantly increased risks. The combination of preparation stress on older bodies, sedation complications, and the physical demands of the procedure create a perfect storm of potential problems. Your colon, after 7 decades of faithful service, becomes more fragile and less tolerant of invasive procedures. Yet the screening guidelines often ignore these age-related risks. The statistics are sobering. A massive study following 1.3 million patients revealed that routine colonoscopies save only 2 lives per one, 0 exams in seniors over 70. But those same 0 exams result in 20 serious complications like Dana's perforation, severe bleeding, or dangerous reactions to sedation. The math is simple and stark. The procedure is 10 times more likely to harm you than help you. Dana's perforation required emergency surgery to repair the tear in her colon wall. The recovery took months, during which she developed an infection that required additional antibiotics and extended her healing time. The irony was devastating. A test meant to prevent problems had created the most serious health crisis of her life. She went from being a healthy, active senior to someone dealing with surgical complications and ongoing digestive issues. But Dana's story also reveals a better path forward. During her recovery, she learned about stool-based tests like FIT that can screen for colon cancer without any of the risks of colonoscopy. These simple tests, done in the privacy of your home, detect blood in stool samples that might indicate problems. They're not perfect, but for symptom-free seniors, they offer a much safer first line of screening. The most important lesson from Dana's experience is understanding that small, slow-growing polyps found during colonoscopies in seniors often grow so slowly that they may never become problematic in a normal lifetime. Removing them through biopsy can sometimes cause more trauma than leaving them alone. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for your body is to let it age naturally without subjecting it to procedures it no longer needs. Today, Dana chooses annual FIT testing over invasive procedures. She's learned that true preventive care sometimes means preventing unnecessary interventions, and that protecting your health after 70 might mean being more selective about which battles are worth fighting. Number 5. Full-body CT scans. Marcus saw the advertisement in his local newspaper. Peace of mind full-body scan. Detect problems before symptoms appear. At 80, the idea of catching any potential issues early appealed to him immensely. The private clinic promised a comprehensive look at his entire body in just 30 minutes. No symptoms required. No doctor referral needed. Marcus booked his appointment, believing he was taking the ultimate step in preventive care. He had no way of knowing that this single decision would expose him to radiation equivalent to 500 chest X-rays and set in motion a cascade of medical interventions he never needed. The scan detected a small nodule in Marcus's lung. The radiologist report used words like suspicious and requires follow-up. Suddenly, Marcus went from feeling perfectly healthy to terrified that he might have lung cancer. The clinic referred him to a pulmonologist who recommended an immediate biopsy to determine if the nodule was malignant. Marcus, now consumed with worry about this spot he couldn't feel and had never caused him problems, agreed to the procedure without hesitation. What Marcus didn't understand is that full-body CT scans are like looking for trouble with a magnifying glass. They detect countless tiny abnormalities that exist in most people over 70. Small nodules, Cysts and irregularities that have been present for years without causing any problems suddenly become findings that demand action. These scans have an extraordinary ability to find things that look concerning but are completely harmless, turning healthy people into worried patients overnight. The biopsy procedure that was supposed to provide answers nearly killed Marcus. During the lung biopsy, his lung collapsed, a complication that occurs in up to 15% of these procedures. What should have been a simple outpatient procedure became a week-long hospital stay, with a chest tube draining air from around his collapsed lung. The nodule, when finally analyzed, turned out to be completely benign, a small scar from a respiratory infection he'd had decades earlier and never remembered. The radiation exposure from Marcus's scan was equivalent to 500 chest X-rays delivered all at once. A comprehensive 2023 study suggests that these high-dose scans may be responsible for up to 5% of all cancers diagnosed in the United States. The tragic irony is that a test marketed as cancer prevention might actually be causing the very disease it claims to detect. For someone Marcus's age, the radiation risk outweighs any potential benefit by a substantial margin. The American College of Radiology has taken the unusual step of actively advising against full-body CT scans in healthy adults. This is remarkable because radiologists make money from these procedures, yet they're warning people away from them. The medical evidence is overwhelmingly clear. These scans cause more harm than good, turning healthy seniors into patients and creating anxiety where none existed before. Marcus learned the hard way that the best approach to health monitoring at 80 is listening to your body and addressing actual symptoms when they arise. Targeted tests based on real concerns make sense. Fishing expeditions through your entire body with high-dose radiation do not. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do for your health is go looking for problems that aren't bothering you. Today, Marcus advocates for the wisdom of letting sleeping dogs lie. He's learned that true peace of mind doesn't come from scanning every inch of your body for potential problems. It comes from trusting that a body that has served you faithfully for 8 decades deserves the respect of not being subjected to unnecessary procedures that create more fear than they prevent. Rose, George, Raymond, Dana, and Marcus. 5 people who trusted the system and paid a price they never should have paid. Their stories aren't unique. They represent millions of seniors who believe that more medical care automatically means better care. Today, you've learned that sometimes the opposite is true. Your body at 70 is not broken. It's experienced. It's earned every line, every change, every sign of the decades it has faithfully served you. When the medical world tries to convince you that normal aging is disease, you now have the knowledge to push back. You have the power to ask that one crucial question: what happens next? The real gift of these stories isn't just knowing which tests to avoid. It's understanding that you have choices. You can choose peace of mind over constant worry. You can choose lifestyle changes over risky medications. You can choose to trust your body's wisdom over fear-based medicine. These aren't just medical decisions. They're decisions about how you want to live the rest of your life. Think about it. How many times have you left a doctor's office feeling more worried than when you walked in? How many tests have you agreed to simply because you were afraid to say no? That ends today. You now have permission to protect yourself not just from disease, but from unnecessary medical interventions that can steal your vitality and peace. The strongest seniors aren't those who get the most tests. They're the ones who stay active, eat well, sleep deeply, and approach their health with wisdom instead of fear. They're the ones who understand that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say no. Which of these stories resonated most deeply with you today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what another viewer needs to hear. And if this video gave you a new perspective on your health, please share it with someone you care about. Remember, aging with grace isn't about avoiding every possible problem. It's about choosing which battles are worth fighting. Stay strong, stay wise, and trust yourself. You've earned that right.